Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Your primary host is Eric Doc Wright, PhD, certified manager, military veteran, serial founder, best-selling business author, philosopher, linguist, and coach. Your other host is Jeremy Burdick, project management professional, scrum master, product owner, and retired Air Force chief, and the current COO of Vets to PM and the Professional Development Unit University, where we will interview veterans successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Next, let's introduce today's guest. Our guest today is Adam Milliren, and he was a combat engineer from 2010 and to 2018 in the United States Marines. He met Nicole during his military transition road trip after he had separated, and he took this amazing road trip, and we'll talk about it during the episode. Nicole's been in the surety industry and worked as a surety underwriter while Adam completed his entrepreneurship degree from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. In 2021, Adam and Nicole started a surety agency to help surety users and insurance agents get the most knowledgeable and specialized surety support. I think you'll enjoy the show as he talks about his road trip, his journey, and why he transitioned. All right, let's get started. All right, welcome to the show, Adam. So glad to have you on. So pretty cool story. I want to kind of get into, there's a couple words in here that I'm not super familiar, like surety and stuff like that. So we'll cover some of those topics, but let's get to know you just a little bit. Talk to me about your service. What did you do in the military? And then when and why did you transition?
Yeah, so I was a combat engineer in the Marine Corps from 2010 to 2018. I did two enlistments. I started out in Okinawa, 9th ESB, doing lots of vertical, horizontal construction. We got to do a school rebuild in the Philippines. I worked at the construction shop on Camp Hansen for a while my unit was deployed. I got there and they were deploying like a month later, and I didn't make the deployment. So I was RBE and got kicked to the construction shop, but I got to do a lot of vertical, horizontal construction, building walls for EOD to blow up and stuff like that. And then I came to Camp Lejeune, and I was division from there pretty much. I did a couple deployments with BLT 26. And from there, I pretty much knew during my second enlistment that I was getting out. Just hard on my back, physically I was taking a toll. I played for the Marine Corps All-Marine team, and I played for the Camp Lejeune rugby club. So, I had a concussion. I had a foot injury in that. I broke my hand, and just lots of signals that it wasn't working out for me pretty much physically. I was also, for a short stint between there, I was in MARSOC logistics group. So I was training with some of my buddies to try out for MARSOC pretty much. But during that is when I really injured my back, and then I started having to take therapy and stuff like that. Physical therapy, that is, to recover my back injury. I just couldn't. There was a point in time where I couldn't even barely finish a 3-mile run, and my back would like tighten up so bad. So I had to go into a little bit of therapy there, but like yoga and stretching. I did a thing called Ramwad, which is one of the Navy doctors. He recommended to me, range of motion workout of the day. And it's pretty much just 20 minutes of stretching every day. And that really helped me out a lot. And then now since my transition, I've just been doing like a lot of yoga like classes and stuff like that. Not really doing as much like heavy weightlifting as I did in the Marine Corps and stuff like that. But I knew that I wanted to get out, go to school, finish my degree. And what I did that in, I just knew I wanted to be in business. So I went for entrepreneurship. I started out at Arizona State University, and I was in a long distance relationship with my wife at that time. And so I ended up going one semester there and moving to Nashville, Tennessee to move in with my now wife. So we've been together ever since then. I moved to Belmont University and finished up at their entrepreneurship program. Very, very basics of entrepreneurship stuff that you learn at like the Boots to Business program and TAP and stuff like that. So yeah, and I mean that led to where I am today, running an agency with my wife. Her family's been in Surety ever since her father started. He's run a couple Surety companies through time. She used to be an underwriter, and at the same time I was graduating, she left her job as an underwriter, and we stepped down to be an agency to help contractors get bonded, have better rates, terms, all that kind of stuff. And we broker a lot of business for people who don't deal with Surety a lot, like insurance agents and stuff like that. So yeah,
Wow.
we help whoever we can place Surety business. She has lots of relationships with like Surety markets and really knows what she's doing with pretty much any Surety risk. So it gives us a little bit of an advantage, and we're able to help people along the way too. So
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's really neat. So pretty interesting story, and we moved it pretty quick, but ultimately there's a couple things I just want to unpack there for the MTA listeners out there is, all right, you said a word and it's kind of like yoga, but it sounds a little cooler. Range of motion exercise of the day. What did you call it?
it's ROMWOD, ROMWOD, range of motion workout of the day.
Okay, I like that. Wrong one. Is there like a website or something that people can go to see that, or is it just some program, or how did you find out what to do each day?
Yeah, so it's a subscription based program. It's like $12 or $14 a month, and they come out with 7 videos per week, and they're about 20 minutes long. There's one long video each week, and it's about, I think, 40 minutes or 60 minutes long. And really, you're just holding poses for long periods of time. Um, yeah, and that's really all it is. They have different coaches that come in and teach different class like every day, so it's never the same coaches really.
Okay.
But then yeah, they're just leading the instruction. It's like pretty much like you're watching a YouTube video.
Okay, very cool. And it worked for you.
Oh yeah, it worked great for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would wake up every morning. That was my morning routine before I went to formation or whatever every day. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., do my workout, check on my Marines, head to the chow hall, make sure they get their chow. Maybe it depends on what part of the workup we're in or whatever, but could be doing PT that morning, could be pushing PT to the afternoon, whatever it may be. But yeah, it was usually the first part of my day every day, or the last part of my day on the long day.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's helpful. And I don't know a Marine that doesn't have a back issue. So, I mean,
Right.
it's include my nephew and a lot of family members. So, I mean, we've got a very diverse and military family, and we're all in different services. I was Air Force, and most of them are Air Force, but there's definitely some Army Marines peppered in there. And tell you what, anything that can help them if they want to maintain, if they want to stay, and not have to medically retire or separate, then maybe that's a nice resource for them. So thanks for sharing that. Very cool.
Yep.
So combat engineer, decided to get out. What I guess prompted you? You said on your second enlistment you kind of already knew. How did you know? Like, what was the feeling? What was was it more about optimism for the transition on the outside, or was it you just like, hey, listen, I played this out, I've been a Marine, I've served my country, and now I'm ready to do something different?
Yeah, so I mean, I went to school for 3 semesters before the military, so I had like $10,000, $12,000 worth of debt whenever I started up, and it took me about my whole first 4 years to pay it off as a E1, E2 pay, E3 pay. So, but I realized the power that like the military carried in that, that you get your paycheck every 2 weeks, and it's pretty predictable, and you can make a plan and budget pretty easily on that, especially when you don't have expenses such as house expenses, electric, all that stuff. I mean, maybe a cell phone bill, maybe a vehicle insurance, and that's about it. But I realized, the saving power. I really was getting into like investing. At that time I was like investing in CDs, certificates of deposit, which they kind of fell off when you didn't get anything for them from like 2014 to 2022 or whatever. And now they've recently picked them back up again. But then I started getting into stocks. I was always talking to my like officers, all the guys who went to school or that like traded stocks. What are you doing? Talking to some of my lieutenants about like real estate investing, stuff like that, and just reading books and that kind of thing. And I realized, I was just starting to learn this stuff. and I wanted to do another enlistment, save up some money so I had a cushion for whenever I got out. And so yeah, and then I was I for my re-enlistment incentive, I wanted to go either MSG, and then my last decision was to like extend on station, and that's what they gave me, was extend on station. Um, and they didn't give me MSG, so I was like, oh, whatever, okay, I'll play it out here. I was set to like go on a deployment or whatever, and then I got orders to DI field, and that was not really in the cards for me. I had never wanted to be a drill instructor, so yeah, I denied orders and got stuck with that unit anyways. So once you deny orders, you can't re-enlist and you get stuck with your unit. So I made that decision. I knew I wanted to get out, and with that, going to DI school, I also had to extend my contract by 18 months. So I knew that I didn't want to do that either, because that would put me like pretty far past 30 at that point. So, and I really wanted to get to school, get my education done, and get started on that next journey. So yeah, I chose to deny orders, and really it worked out great because I spent like 6 years with my last unit. I knew that I was getting out. I was able to prepare for it, and I was able to just leading Marines like was very easy at that point for me, because I wasn't worried about myself so much and like what was going on. I knew I was going to be with that unit, and I did back-to-back deployments in the same billet because I couldn't get promoted either. So my first one was like a little bit of practice. My second one was like, I got this. And I was a better, being in the same billet for 2 deployments. I did a lot better, and it was a lot easier for me. And I was able to also pass down a lot of my work to others because I was able to build them up to that level as well. But then, yeah, I prepared. I did my my transition assistance program about a year out. And really, my last deployment ended about 2 weeks before I got out. So I got back, pretty much did all my separation in about a week or two. So it's definitely possible for those of you that think it takes like 2 months and you're getting stressed out. Yeah, you can do it quickly. But yeah, I even got to take like 6 days of terminal leave with that. So
Wow.
and then me and my buddy from the Marine Corps that played rugby together, we actually, that little nest egg that I was talking about, I mean, I had saved up probably about $30,000 during that last 4 years. And I probably spent about 20,000 of it in about 3 months with my buddy on a road trip. We spent, like $5,000 getting our skydiving license. And we traveled from Camp Lejeune clear over to California before we backtracked to Phoenix to start going to school at ASU. So yeah,
Wow.
I definitely, had that plan over the 4 years and knew that I wanted to really enjoy myself and, take some time during separation, which isn't a common thing that you see with a lot of veterans. They want to have that job lined up as they get out. But I think, if you can do it, if you can arrange for it. I was single, didn't have any kids, anything like that. So if I had to live in my car, that's what I would have done. If I had to, I would have been fine with that. Sleeping in dirt in the foxhole, that's one thing. Sleeping in the back of a car, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. Wow. There's a couple things there that I think are pretty amazing. And, one of which is you have planned for your separation or transition or transformation, depending on how you want to talk about it, way in the future, like several years. You said up to 6 years at one point. You already had this mindset that I'm like, okay, listen, I am going to be done with this Marine stuff by this date. So I'm preparing early and often. So I think that's a great advice to anybody. Don't wait till the year before. Don't wait till something medically happens and you've got less than a year to figure everything out. It doesn't give you enough runway. It doesn't give you enough financial cushion. It just doesn't give you enough headspace either. So I think that's extremely cool. So good on you for making that decision and kind of knowing, and whether it was done through, Marine policy of, hey, you denied orders, great. That was just a catalyst, but it was still your decision to do. Secondly, I thought that was really cool that, you said it was a lot easier to lead when you weren't worried about yourself. And I find that extremely true. Like if you are just worried about, you already got your plan figured out, right? So if you're trying to figure out your plan and the plans of your subordinates, it makes it a heck of a lot more complex, because now you're having to use brain power on yourself and them, and you're trying to figure out, okay, timelines. So I think that's kind of cool, is you sharing the fact that if you unload the burden of your own mind and your own progress and you can just focus on your subordinates, probably made you a better leader too. So I think that was pretty insightful. And then, so then we transition. So we go into this transition, you take some time off, you kind of find out who you are, go do some living with your rugby buddy. And I thought that's pretty neat too. And then skydiving, always exhilarating. But then talk to me, you said a word in the beginning of the show, surety. What is surety? Like, give me the short, ape definition of that.
Yeah, I feel like surety. So my father-in-law, he's been in the surety industry for over 40 years. And he says that it takes about 3 to 5 years for anyone to truly understand surety. And I find that very true. If someone's been working in surety for a year, they haven't seen a whole lot. Surety is driven by regulations. So it's also overseen by the Department of Insurance at the state level. So it's in reality a credit product, but rolled up into insurance. So lots of like property and casualty carriers that do like your home and auto, maybe your business commercial insurance. Many of them also are capable of handling surety business. So where surety comes in is in mostly government contracting is what drives it. It's mostly in the construction industry. And so what a surety bond does is it's a third party that comes in. It's pretty much a financial institution, financial backing institution that provides this surety bond to contractors. The contractors have to then provide the surety bond to the government for any kind of contracts that they're undertaking. So if a contractor is working on a military barracks, they are bidding on that job. And in order to bid on that job, they have to secure a surety bond to secure the project. And what that does is it guarantees what I think is the best part of it is the payment piece. So it's two pieces. It's a payment and a performance piece. So the performance of the building of the barracks, it guarantees that. So if the contractor goes under, can't finish the project for some reason, it has someone, and it's a bankruptcy specifically is where this helps out. It brings someone in to provide the financial burden of that, so it doesn't fall on taxpayers and the general public. And the second piece to it is, since it's public property, it can't be put a lien on it if there's subcontractors or suppliers who don't get paid for their work on the project. So that surety bond replaces how, like, if in your house, if you had a plumber come in and do some plumbing work and you didn't pay them, they could put a lien on your house. So you can't sell the house without paying them, essentially. And so you can't do that with public property. So that's what the surety bond does. It guarantees that right to payment for subs and suppliers.
Okay, so if I'm getting it right, it's similar to insurance, and essentially, if if you're the government, I hand you a bond, it's saying that, hey, I'm good for it, and if I don't perform, the bond will pay you.
Right.
And if it doesn't meet up to standards, or I have a subcontractor underneath me, they can't necessarily put a lien against the government or whatever that contract was.
Because a lien isn't something that you can do on public property.
Nice. Wow. Very cool. So how'd you get into it? You said your father-in-law, right? So you got into it that way. So what is what's the pathway for it? If someone's transitioning from the military, is this one a good fit for an individual? And then two, how would they follow in your footsteps?
Yeah. So, I mean, okay. So backtracking a little bit, the other piece to the surety bond is that it's a pre-qualification of the contractor. So the government is also outsourcing that work to the surety underwriter, essentially. So they're looking at, what jobs has that contractor done in the past? What is their scope of work that they generally work on? Are they qualified to actually do the work on this contract? Do they have the assets to do the work? And if they run into any problems, do they have the financial wherewithal to withstand any, headwinds or whatever? So yeah, that's the other piece to it. And so, yeah, I got into it mostly because it's my wife's family has been in the business for a while. Nobody purposely finds their way in surety, pretty much. It's always like accidental for the most part. It's a highly unknown and misunderstood industry. And I think a lot of that has to do probably with the regulatory pieces being tied to insurance rather than to like banks and like credit products. So you generally have people who deal with insurance, kind of entering a whole different wheelhouse with, we're looking at financial statements. We're like calculating net worth and working capital and that kind of thing to understand how much the each principal can qualify for. And by principal, that's the contractor. That's the legal terminology for the contractors. So we're looking at that. We're pulling credit. Sometimes we're looking at references that they may provide, calling on references for past projects or suppliers, making sure they're doing what they say they're going to do, paying on time, that kind of thing. And then the last part is the scope of work, making sure, it's not someone who does residential home building trying to work on a wastewater treatment plant or something like that. We want to make sure that they are familiar with the scope of work that they're doing, or if they're expanding in a scope of work, that they hire a subject matter expert for this piece of the project, something like that. So.
Wow. So, I mean, it may very well, one, be required by the contract, but two, it might help out your chances of winning the contract if you've got a company like you behind them saying, hey, we've already looked at them, they're bonded, they're licensed, they're ready to go.
Right. Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. And what's the name of the company if somebody needed to reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. Parrot Surety Services, Parrot like the bird, Parrot.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. And that's our website, parrotsuretyservices.com.
Parrot Surety Services.
Yep, we actually just launched our new website last week. We optimized it for like SEO and stuff. And with that, we've provided, so our marketing is, so we have a parrot bird. It's like kind of a cartoon, red, green, yellow. My wife chose it because it carries the spirit of the surety bond. Parrots are known for repeating things, and that's what a surety bond does. It repeats the obligation back to the obligee, the government agency requiring the bond. Usually like the DOD for like a barracks or something like that.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, the parrot carries the spirit of surety.
Parrot Surety. I like it. All right. Well, very cool. So just changing gears a little bit. You've transitioned now. You're doing the surety stuff. How's it been going? Like anything you want to share about your transition looking backwards that you did right and you want to share that, or things that you did wrong and you want to save somebody from stepping on that same landmine?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing compared to like many of the other stories that I hear, I mean, I kind of already talked about this, but during that transition, don't feel like you need to start a job the day that you get out. I know there's like lots of awesome programs that you learn about during your transition out of the military, kind of like Skill Bridge, stuff like that. And I know there's some stat out there, like most veterans they change their job within like 7 months, their first job after the military. So, definitely look inward and try to figure out where you want to be. But yeah, whenever you find out what you're doing, don't be too tied to it, because the majority of veterans change not too far after. And I really liked taking that. I mean, mine ended up being, so I got out in like August, and I was going to try to make that September 1st, first semester. And I ended up not starting my semester till January. So I took a pretty good split of time there, but I got a roommate out. So, whenever my BAH started kicking in, I was splitting our rent with a roommate. So that gave me enough expenses to live for every month or whatever, with getting like $2,000 BAH and only having like a $600-700 rent and sharing water and electric and all that too. So
Yeah. Prepping financially. I mean, you did mention it early on the show. It's like, hey, in the military, we do have, it's a Spartan wage, so you're not going to get rich. However,
right.
You do have a guaranteed paycheck for the most part. I mean, it's pretty regular. So what you can do is control what's going out. You can't control what's coming in, but you can control what you're spending. And I like the way you put it. It's essentially you lowered the output so you could retain more of what was coming in, and essentially building that cushion. So good job. Well done. I mean, to have in the matter of 4 years on a government paycheck to be able to save 30 is pretty dang great.
Right.
Yeah. So, so now we've transitioned. What did you What do you wish you could have done differently? Anything that you would say that would have, with hindsight being 2020, saying, hey, I could have done this. This would have maybe, this small little tweak might have prevented X stress. You seem like a pretty stress or carefree fella when it comes down to it in this moment, but back then maybe not so much.
Yeah, I would say most of my hindsight comes in like entrepreneurship, owning a business. So, um, the first thing that I'm glad about is that I started out at Arizona State University in entrepreneurship and innovation. So it was a lot of like business mixed with developers and stuff like that. So they did that on purpose to make them like network and hopefully put two business partners together that can come up with some innovative technology. And that was like what was really big at Arizona State. And then I transferred to Belmont University, and they were very like grassroots entrepreneurship. Like, hey, I'm a guy who wants to make $300,000 a year. Between me and my business partner, that's $150,000 each. We need to do this much business in a year. We need to paint this many commercial buildings and this many residential buildings, and that's how we make the money that we want to make. And I really appreciated, it's cool and everything, like trying to build a company that's going to be worth like $1 billion, but it's, more realistic to want to just build a company that serves, your local community, painting buildings and stuff like that, and making the living that you want to live, and, employing employees who are also making a living and stuff like that. So, I think that I very much so appreciated learning just like the grassroots of business and how to plan a business to build the life you want, really, instead of, just going in on risky stuff and hoping for like huge tech investments and stuff like that. So I'm definitely glad that I did that. And what was the other thing that I had started out on? Oh, entrepreneurship, like hindsight. Definitely. So the biggest thing going to school in entrepreneurship, I thought it was going to be so easy because I saw how to plan a business. I planned like a hair salon during school. I planned a dog kennel during school. I have like complete business plans for those and everything. Never pursued those, but it was good practice. And I thought it would be like super easy, jump into the agency, do the agency. And one of the things that I always took for granted was marketing and like driving that business. I've always been like an introvert, not growing a big network. So I guess my big thing in hindsight is, as you're transitioning, build your network, connect with those people on LinkedIn who are also transitioning, your senior officers and non-commissioned officers who are going to be getting out. Maybe even, your subordinates, you might, have some good connections there too. But I got out, and like 2 years ago, I had 36 LinkedIn connections. And that was after school and everything. So, it's been a hustle, like completely changing my personality to build connections with people and build my network. But that was probably, in hindsight, the biggest thing that I didn't do that I wish I would have. And then in business, just, definitely don't take marketing for granted. You're going to have to find your customers somewhere. If you build it, they do not just come. Like, you have to go find them, get in front of them, talk to them, and differentiate your product from similar products, and you have to know how to do that and speak that. And especially in my line of business, so we're almost a middleman. So we're selling not just to contractors, but to surety. So we have to, think about who we're talking to in all those situations. And even when we're talking about contractors, it's not always just contractors. Sometimes we're selling to other insurance agents. Sometimes we're selling to not even contractors. Surety bonds are used in other instances too, such as to protect the environment with like landfills and mines and stuff like that. So, we talk to a lot of different types of customers, and aligning your messaging to those customers and finding channels to connect with them and getting in front of them is a lot tougher than you would think it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point. And being a fairly small company at Vets PM, that we do the same thing, and you're always wearing these different hats and communicating with different vendors or pieces or people. And how much time a day do you think you spend marketing, or a week, however you tabulate it?
Well, we actually have an employee who is like our full marketing manager. So our marketing tasks, we post on LinkedIn twice a week, and we don't get all tied up into too many channels. We just try to stay where our people are. So like, we don't do Twitter, we don't do Instagram, we don't do Facebook really. So we just minimize, selectively choose our channels and just try to be really good at what we do. So we try to, since Surety is such a complicated product, we try to break it down into what we call it in the military Barney style. So, we use lots of visuals and try to really simplify things for people.
Nice. Nice.
And so yeah, the time that I spend on it has become a lot less with like Chat GPT. I use it, I've gotten really good at it still takes like the same amount of time, but just the way you talk to Chat GPT and the way to use it, it can be really good for people who aren't good at writing. And I'm one of those people who aren't good at writing. It takes me probably twice as much time to write a report as anybody else. At least I realized that in school, in college, because I just finished up probably 2 years ago now. So.
Wow. You bring up Chat GPT. I mean, so give me an instance of how you use it. Like, for anybody out there that's listening, a lot of times, we hear about it, but we don't have like a tactical, like, for example. So just throw a for example out there.
Yeah. So for prompting, instead of just saying like, write me a paper breaking down surety bonds, you gotta prompt it more. And, I already have in my mind what I want the paper to look like. It just takes me a long time to get it there. With Chat GPT, I can do it easier just by adding more words. One of the things that I learned recently that really helps out is I prompt it, Chat GPT, write an article that's going to go on LinkedIn about surety bonds. Make sure to include how it differentiates against insurance. Make sure you talk about the 3 parties in the agreement. Make sure you talk about this and ask me 10 more questions that will help you better write this article. And it'll ask you questions and you just answer them. So I get 10 questions. It's like, who's your target audience? Who is whatever. It'll ask you questions that pertain to it. And you just answer the questions real quick with 1 or 2 sentences and it'll throw it out. And then I also restrain it to, I want this to be 3 sentences. I want this to be 1 paragraph. I want this to be 3 paragraphs. And it'll spit out something and then you can just tell it to refine the 2nd paragraph and leave this out and change it to this. And so that's how I utilize the tool. And it still takes me over an hour sometimes to write something, but that quality is a lot better. And Chat GPT thinks very simply as well. So it works well for what we're trying to do because it really breaks it down and clarifies those simple things that sometimes we just overlook as professionals writing about the industry we're in.
Yeah. You don't see the forest for the trees, or, I mean, it's just
right.
Once you're in it, you're like, I don't know, because we've done that so many different times through website redesign or whatever else. Is I know what I'm looking for, but I can't take the what I know off the hat off when I'm building it. So sometimes I just overlook, like, oh yeah, you should already know this. Well, you don't know this. So simplicity, I think this is kind of this, and this is helpful for any industry anywhere when you're communicating. Simplicity, and don't overlook what the other person might not know, right? They don't always come from the same background, understand the same acronyms. And this is for you military veterans out there, for your resume, the jargon, the acronyms, the leadership positions, the whatever the outcome of whatever mission, they don't always understand that. So you have to like really civilianize it when it comes down to get rid of acronyms. Put in percentages and numbers, but of stuff that matters to the civilian world, like time, efficiency, budget, results. So ultimately, that maybe Chat GPT could do that too. So it kind of seems like it probably could.
Yep. I would definitely. That's one of my mentor's biggest things. Never use acronyms. Just drop them.
Yeah, just drop them.
Especially in business meetings.
Yeah, because you're
even if it's something obvious.
Right. Yeah. I agree 100% with that. Is you don't know where everybody else is in that same room, So I don't know. I've been multiple times I've been confused, and I know that I've confused others. So, and either way, that was just a complete waste of time for both parties. So, well, too cool, Adam. As we start to wrap this up, and we've got to know you a little bit, are there any simple tactical stuff that somebody could do tomorrow to make their transition better? And also, while you're thinking about that, is there a book that you read or some kind of an inspirational leader that you look up to that you might share with the group?
So while I was transitioning, I was reading a lot mostly because I was on deployment, so I was on Muse. So the ship library, I just pretty much read every self-help book in there. My favorite author was probably Malcolm Gladwell. I just like, I like entrepreneurial thinking and like thinking outside of the box, and he definitely does that all the time. I'm sure if you haven't read his books, you might have heard of his some of his podcasts. Just rethinking things in a different frame of mind, or just like throwing some mind-boggling stats out there. I just like that type of thinking. And that's definitely good thinking for entrepreneurship, for strategic thinkers, for any top level executives in any kind of company out there, project managers probably too. But yeah, the book that I'm reading right now that I've really been enjoying, it's one that I just read every night. It's not like the book that I pick up and read, and it's from Tim Ferriss. It's actually got it right here. It's Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. It's the tactics, routines, and habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. And so what it does, I'm not sure how many are in here, well over 100, but it takes all of his interviews. He interviews, if you don't know Tim Ferriss, he interviews these people, and then he takes the most important pieces of what he learns from every person, and he breaks it down into like sometimes just one page, sometimes up to like 5 pages, but just the routines and tactics that these people do, whether it's their morning routine, whether it's a vitamin that they take every day like magnesium or whatever, just lots of little things. So I read like one of those every night before bed. It's 5 or 10 minutes, and I read it out loud. So I read it for my wife, and we also have like a 6-month-old. So before we go to bed every night, it's just something to, I don't know, help soothe her and just expose her to more reading, even if it's not her level and she's not consuming anything. But yeah, we get lots of good tips out of there every now and then. It applies to something going on in the business too. So yeah, different tips on health, wealth, running a business, that kind of stuff. So
I love it. I love it. And in fact, the kiddo's just listening to daddy's voice. So that's ultimately beneficial for the whole family. So I love it. A great share. I appreciate it. And any last parting shot before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's about it. So yeah, if anybody has any, I guess for surety bonds, I just with the help of ChatGPT, I just wrote a like 7 or 8 page how to get into federal contracting, or using surety bonds in federal contracting. So I tried to break it down into as simple as possible steps, the different pieces of surety. So if anybody wants that, yeah, you can find me on our website, and I will shoot you a copy of that. I'll probably have it up on the website or have some way to get it soon. Like I said, we just rolled out our website last week, so we're still working on it, adding stuff to it, and that'll be one of the things coming in there. So
parrotsuretyservices.com.
parrotsuretyservices.com.
Yeah, beautiful. And we've got it's been really cool to get to know you, and I hope some people reach out and look at some surety services.
Same to you, Jeremy.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vets2pm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.